The meeting, as always, is being broadcast live and digitally recorded, and we will start off with open sessions. Anybody here for open session tonight? Get them?
Dan, I got two questions for the board.
Yeah.
First one is, what happened to Scott LeBlanc's name regarding being the planning board's alternate member?
What happened to it?
Yeah, I've heard nothing from you guys with his name at all, and I know that he went and filled the form out and put it in.
For the alternate, we already,
We-
that was a while back.
Yeah, it was a while back. We did actually sort of
acknowledge that.
recommend Francois for that.
He was considered for the position.
Yeah, he was considered. Yeah.
Okay, may I ask why he was not, why you guys didn't like to support his name?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it all that night. I mean, it's all on video if you want to go back and look at that. We were pretty, I think we all sort of gave our opinion on the reasoning of another direction. It had to do with, previous election results, and I even made a point to say, I remember saying that I'm not all that comfortable with sort of going against what a board's will might be. However, the collective of the five of us was all very, very consistent. And so, again, I can sort of restate that entire thing, but that's the general gist. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, was that it was clear that the town had voted to go in another direction, and so we felt as though we were sort of just furthering that effort and will.
Okay, I can go back and look at that.
Yeah, that was most of it, though.
Second question is, the Board of Selectmen have made many statements over the past 2 years that I've been doing this, that our town needs to have more income.
Income, okay.
What are you guys doing or going to do about the fines that have been handed out and not paid?
So, it's tough to have Ryan not here to answer that question, because he's, we're in, as you know, we're in flux right now with our building department. We haven't really know which direction we're gonna be going in, and that building department director, building commissioner, whatever we call it, is the enforcer of the fines. So some of that still has to get figured out first, whether or not we're partnering with another communities, or who that officer is going to be. So it's tough to specifically answer how that's going to be done without having that way forward yet, because it's not necessarily going to be, it's unknown. So I don't know. And now if you're referring to previous fines, is that what you're referring to as well, or moving forward? Because we do have and we've sort of committed ourselves to, as we move forward, to follow through with more of this. And for 30 years it hasn't necessarily been followed through. But we have a sort of a way to do it now with a hearing officer and all that, but still the building department stuff has to get figured out. But we were, it was clear to us that was, the will of the planning board too, was to make sure that we do have a way forward. So we've been working on it.
That was
Okay.
stated as one of your
Yeah.
selected goals, I believe.
Yeah.
Because I'm more concerned with the past ones.
Yeah, you know how
realize
hard.
we have over $250,000 just from one person?
Absolutely. We've been told by you guys 100 times, and I hear it, and it was part of all the meetings, and it was part of the meetings with John, and others. It's been through the years. He's definitely not the only one.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Dan.
yeah, okay. Anyone else here for open session? Okay, so we have a 7 o'clock meeting when the planning board's gonna open up their meeting as well, which is what we have posted. So we've got some, and this was really the only reason we were gonna have an extra meeting here tonight, because we had a little miscommunication on our part last week. So I appreciate you guys being flexible and coming on in again. And so we have some other business that we can take care of. So there's 6 or 7 items that we're just gonna go through our normal business, and then we'll probably not get quite to 7, so there might have to just be, 15 people sitting in silence. I'm just kidding. All right, so Lori, just go down the order?
Yep,
Okay.
so, the library roof contract, this is something that you guys had seen last week, you were waiting for the insurance. We did send it, and I have the copies here, so everything, that was something that you, voted on to approve, as long as
Yep.
the insurance, we just need this signed.
Yep, sounds good. So just, you guys remember, there's errors and omissions
Yeah.
insurance that went along with professional liability. Just
And
wanted
if
to
you
make sure
need
that
to
was
see
all
them,
set.
they're in your drive, and I have copies here. Mhm.
One copy.
Yep. just under, yep.
It was a nice day for a race though, it was like
Oh,
60.
yeah,
Yep.
the temperature was
I
Just
didn't
the one.
get into some of these where it's been brutal.
Just don't know why I know.
Are we on?
It was on a minute ago, so we probably
Is
still
there a person
on.
in there?
Yeah, there is a person in there.
Dan was on there a second ago, so something was working.
I didn't see you.
We're not on the TV.
That's
There
what
we
you
go.
got.
Thank you.
There it was, gone.
It's a voice behind the door.
Bathroom break.
Behind the
Bathroom
door.
break. That's it. They're gonna get started up right away?
I'm sorry?
These guys gonna get started up right away? Or are they already started up? The architects?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We just signed the
I didn't know
contract,
what you're talking about. Well, we needed to have it signed to kick him off.
Sure.
But he is ready to start right away.
Yep.
And as I think I told you, our goal is to get that all done this fall. Hit the contractors when their workload is low, get good bids, and then evaluate them and award and go on with the project.
Okay. All right, next is, we have a license fee comparison. This is sort of your thing,
Yep,
right?
so
You
this
wanna
is
take us through
mine,
this?
yep, this is something that I worked on, I don't have copies for everybody here, but I definitely pass it around, it was just color. So what we did was I compared, we have a few different licenses that we do in town, from restaurant, all alcohol, restaurant, wine, malt, club, package stores, and different things. So I went to different towns, which included Rutland, Ashburnham, Barry, Templeton, Westminster, Oakham, and Princeton, to see where they stood for fees. We obviously want to be business friendly, but we also want to make sure our fees are comparable. Back to 2013, our fees have been the same, so we've never increased our fees from what I've seen, and maybe even going back further. So it's something that you guys haven't visited, and it's not uncommon. Some of the things were held by state, so the auto dealers licenses, we can't go more than $150. So that's why you see those are really pretty much set at 50 and 100. So we're pretty normal going there.
And the red numbers that you have, that's in the first column there, that's how many we have in
That's
town?
how many we have in town. Yep.
Just so everyone knows, it's mostly one.
Yeah. So there's not many. So we have one. We have a couple that are 2, 8. A common vicular, which is if somebody is selling food out of a place and it's a sit down place, that's where they get that. So I mean, we have fees. So the median price for some of them, I mean, you can see that the red is what we're a negative compared to the median amount of a negative. We have as high as a 224. So out of those towns, and the one that really kills us is Barry at $216, and then Oakham is low at 205. But as you can see, the next comparable ones are 500 and up to 1,000. So if those weren't in there, the median would go a lot higher. Like I said, you can see we're negative $111, negative 224, negative 124, 18, 85, and down. The only one that, we're a little bit off is a 44, and you can see that line is the club all alcohol, but they're even at 550, 700, and so we're pretty comparable in that. Again, it's those two towns that kind of just bring us down, but. I mean, it's good to know.
No, thanks for this
what's-
analysis,
Absolutely,
this is great to know.
What's in the other towns? It's not as fancy as Josh's spreadsheet and thing, but but it gives us an idea of what we want to do. So it's not something that you need to make a decision on now,
Yep.
but I definitely think it's something that we should visit and, like I said, not be like, oh, well, hey, we could collect $224 more and then charge them that money, because clearly they're not going to be happy. But like I said, if we went up, so much percent maybe, or
Yep.
whatever, might be the.
And another phase, which you're not gonna have to do, but another phase of this analysis would be to find out how many of each of the towns, in each of the other towns, how many different types of there are, because that can drive,
Yeah.
economy of scale as well,
Yeah.
right? So if you've got one and you charge X amount, but you've got 15 of them at somewhere else, then that's just another factor too.
Right.
But you're right. I don't think I don't feel the need to do anything on this right now. But it's Very interesting, thank
yeah,
you.
Yeah, and the other things, like when I did talk to other towns, they said that they haven't revisited this for a while either, so it's something that they're gonna be revisiting as well. So, I mean, these are their numbers now, that doesn't mean that they're not gonna go up, $100 on one of their fees, because again, you can see how some are just so low, who knows when the last time they did it, or,
Yeah.
it's one of those things, well, it's this way and it's just that way, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
carries on and carries on.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Thanks.
so that's that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we've got a badge policy.
Yep, so
This is a Ryan thing?
yeah, so, well, this was written actually in 2014, when,
Anita?
no,
Rhiannon?
no, it's Dennis, O'Donnell, down at the, DPW. He wrote it, and, so it was something that was put into place, but it never really went anywhere. So the badge machine at the police station has been down. So we just wanted to update it, because if we're implementing a thing, we didn't wanna give them a document from 2014 to sign. So really, there's been no changes from what you kind of see, it's just basically more of a date update with maybe a few minor changes. It's just so if people go to people's houses, we have a Board of Health that goes and does inspections, and you just have Bill, knocking on somebody's door, and maybe they don't know him, and he's like, yeah, I'm here to.
Everybody knows Bill.
Everybody knows. But I'm just saying, if you have somebody.
I brought it up at one of our meetings.
Yeah.
I do know everybody, but it's
Yeah.
professional to go in with a
Yeah.
badge. and-
Not gonna lie, I kinda want a badge.
They don't have selectmen badges.
I see that.
So they did have, right, there was a list that was compiled saying who should have them and who shouldn't, so I don't think I qualify for one either, but that's okay, I don't need one.
Council on Aging Director gets one.
Yeah, so, right, because, she might make house visits and,
Sure.
or whatever, but, animal inspector, and I don't even think the animal inspector needs one, because I think she has one, but yeah, it includes animal inspector, assessors, board of assessors, them, because obviously they're going to people's houses, building inspector, health agents, which we just did an agreement for, conservation constables, they already have a badge, I guess there's one that didn't, I talked to, Paul Sweeney about that. So like I said, it's mostly just the inspectional people that go out. And then, we can start that process of getting them to get their badges and then have like I said, a policy in place.
Okay.
It would also be like a photo ID.
It would just be basically a photo ID.
Okay.
I think it might state in here, it would just have their basic information. It wouldn't, say anything other than like town of
Title.
Hubbardston, and their name and maybe their position, so.
Brings us up to the present day too, because companies that now come to your house for something, they will call you ahead and say such and such, and they'll have a badge and everything, it's being done.
Mhm.
So I think it definitely is worthwhile to
I mean, you
do.
go to Monty Tech, I've had to go there to pick up, stuff, and,
Okay.
and they have, that you have to wear a visitor badge, and they put your photo on it, just to walk down the hallway to pick a document up, so.
It's the world we live in
yeah.
today, unfortunately.
Right.
All right, so we don't have to take any action on this, right? This is-
I think you just need to vote, so I would still
To
vote
adopt
to
it.
accept it because it's a revised one.
Okay,
I'll make the motion to accept the new badge policy as presented.
Second the motion?
discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Unanimous? Okay, so we've got some wage authorizations here.
Yep.
3 of them, Christopher Bergeron, Police Department, Andrew DiPietro, Fire Department, and Ryan McLean, Town Administrator.
Yep, because he had his 6-month, and then Andrew was a new hire, for the fire department, so.
So these are all due to, probationary period?
One is a new hire,
Oh,
and then
sorry.
the other
I
two
didn't get
are,
that.
yep,
Okay.
Andrew's the new hire.
So we have to do them individually, or do we waive it on all of them? Or are we waiving?
I guess let's just do them individually, cause I can't remember.
Okay. I would move to accept the wage authorization for Christopher Bergeron of the Police Department.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor? Yes?
Yes.
Make a motion to accept the wage authorization for Andrew DiPietro of the Fire Department.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes?
Finally, move to accept the wage authorization for Ryan McLean, Town Administrator.
I'll second that.
Is this discussion?
Nope.
And that would be effective August 20th.
Yeah, his is
Okay, in the motion.
retroactive, so just,
Effective when?
I
20
think it was the
August.
21st.
21st.
Yeah.
I'll amend that, to accept the wage authorization for Ryan McLean, Town Administrator, the date again was
August
August
21st.
August 21st. Will you second that?
Yes, I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, all we have left on here are matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair, which I don't have any. Do you guys have any? And then we also have, we'll do some public press question answer at the end, but as far as old business, is there any old business anyone has either? No? Okay, well, I guess we'll just stay in session and readdress things back in about 15 minutes or so, so feel free to move about the cabin. Ed.
Just an update, because I know at your last meeting, it came up about the Lions Club redoing the stairs at the bandstand.
Yeah.
They took them all apart on Friday and rebuilt them all on Saturday. So,
Enforced. I've
look
drove
great.
by up
They're
there though,
beautiful.
Yeah, so the stairs are all brand new with new stringers and
Yeah.
be good for my lifetime.
Well, great, thanks for the update. I appreciate it.
Field day's a Saturday too, so they're in time for field day, anybody wanting to go to field day. We're watching for the hurricane, but if
Yeah.
all goes well, then.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess we could make an announcement on that too, but that is on next Saturday.
It's Saturday.
This Saturday,
This Saturday.
15th.
It's coming
Nine
from
to
Saturday,
three.
15, 9 to 3?
Hockey rink.
That's great.
Good, Tom.
You might give a first-hand report on the success of the library race,
Yeah.
having been a participant.
Yeah, so I was a participant. This is my 14th year, I think. This is the 21st year overall. They've raised, a lot of people involved, library trustees, as well as, Mark and Mel, who have done this for,
And their daughter.
and their daughter, who was there. Yep, taking the scores, the times. Anyway, so I've been doing it a long time. I've done it competitively. I've done it with a 10-year-old like this time. This was easier. Kind of, although I did say before that she sort of a mental workout, going up and down hills with a 10-year-old.
Challenging?
What's that?
Challenging?
Challenging, yeah. But the winner is actually a former Rutland guy. He's won it, I don't know how many years in a row. He lives in Rutland now, but he went to Quabbin from Hubbardston. And then our second place overall was he's been second many times as well. He's got sort of kids all our age. His name's Matt Twarog, and a couple of his kids were out there as well. So it was a great event. There was a tremendous amount of donations that had to go into it, as well as for the prizes, and then a bunch of other raffles afterwards. Once again, it's a success. It's always dramatic when whoever is chosen to shoot the pistol to start it doesn't really have a lot of familiarity with shooting a pistol, and so this was sort of pointed at the ground and then pop go, but it worked out. I have many more to come. I just hope numbers were down a little bit this year, and I think that we talked about it before. It might have had to do a little bit with the fact that it wasn't allied with field day, which it usually is. So maybe not, but it was a beautiful day for running and a success. So if you wanted to add to that, Tom.
Well, trustees would like to thank everybody that participated, both the runners and of course all the organizers. There's a separate committee that does that, Mark and his family, Mark and Mel and his daughter, and I believe it's Mike and Ann Goshu
Yep.
and others. And I apologize ahead of time for not knowing everybody's name that participated, but there was a number of them. And also all the people that have their names appear on the back of the shirt as sponsors. So we thank everybody.
The shirt is the main driving force why my 10-year-old did it. She did it last year too, and she gets this. It's for pajamas, so it's a long sleeve. It's like the only race that does long sleeve. It says Hubbardston 5K. It's got the library on it, and she literally had it on at the end of the race. And I don't think she took it off for like 2 days, which is a little gross, and it's a parenting issue. I get it, but that's
should work for it.
definitely a driving force for it. Yeah, big smile came out of that. Okay, 10 more minutes.
Did anybody wanna see the fee comparisons?
Yes.
Yeah, I get this one.
Oh, that's your
I
copy.
get it on here.
I'll take it.
Is there a reason the planning board doesn't get
You got this from Ryan.
Get what?
Look.
Beans?
Okay.
Dances? Oh, I don't know, you can get, sure, that's fine. I don't get one either, it's okay.
We'll share one.
You sure? Yeah, that's fine. Mhm.
Actually, I think I will. Thank you.
We have two auto dealers? Oh, yeah, that's right, we got 160. Looks like we're running out.
Station in town?
Just some sign. There's very few here.
If you have questions on who they are, I can let you know who holds them. I'm sure you probably know who they are.
Too many, I can't come.
Yeah, the one and one.
The special one-day nonprofit and special one-day profit, what would that cover?
So when Jamie Pitney did the Boy Scout, the
Beer fest.
what was it called? The
Oktoberfest.
was it
Yeah.
October? Was it October? It was called,
Oh,
called
is
something
that-
else. It
is
was
that alcohol related?
Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's under
so-
the liquor category, I'm sorry, I didn't
Oh,
catch
okay.
the chart.
Yep. So and it was like the 250th. They
Yeah,
did that
okay.
day. So anything
I'm
like
with you
that.
now.
Mhm.
I think the Burtons have done it before.
Yeah. So it's just like a one day, pour as a special. It's not, obviously it's at a public place if you have it, so if you decided to do a one day pour at the rec field, you would need to go through all the steps, but that's what it would cost you. And a lot of places don't charge for the nonprofit, but then they get you on the profit.
What are the auto dealer ones? I know what they are, but
Yes, we do.
John's Auto.
We've said that.
And then there's Sterling Molding Machine has
Okay,
one,
they have
and
one.
then
Yeah,
there's
'cause
Kent
they sell
Brothers.
Wine, I think.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh, that's right, yeah.
What was the last
That
one?
makes sense.
Kent Brothers
The old second shift garage.
on the
That's what
on
that's
left hand side. And then the amusement per device would be like a, the machines, any machines or billiards, poker, things like that, those count.
And the excess mean there's none at that,
So
in
the-
that town?
Right,
And
the excess
blanks?
means that they didn't have that information on their website, I couldn't get in touch with them to get it, might
the
have
excess.
been some, or they didn't offer it.
That's the excess.
That's right, so
And
they
the-
didn't have them, so some of the towns didn't offer them.
And the blanks that are under Ashfordham? Should those have been excess too, or?
They don't, they don't have them, so
They
there
don't
should have been
have
excess,
them.
yes.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Having done this for licenses, I know that, it's always been a concern, how we're keeping up with our salaries and doing wage surveys and, instead of having to pay for a wage survey, cause I think that was one of the things at town meeting that got passed. How difficult would it be for us to do this type of thing with positions in these same communities?
I'm sure a lot of the information you could probably get from annual reports. I know Ryan's been working on a lot of it, doing research for, a lot of the wage, trying to get people up to where they need to be, and using the grade and step system to put people in that right position. So he's been working a lot more with it. I don't know what he's done on it, so I can't
'Cause we
say.
had a survey done not too long ago.
Yeah, there was
2
somebody
years
that
ago?
came in that did all the job descriptions over and things like that as well. But if that's something that he wants to do, start calling towns, and like I said, a lot of it's all public information that you can just get off of offline to see where we compare. But like I said, he's already working on something and has been, so I just don't know what it is.
hockey, anything?
We were up in J Peak this past weekend for hockey. At the J Peak Resort,
Yeah.
spectacular up there.
You don't have to fight any traffic up there.
Hmm?
You don't have to fight any traffic up
No.
that way.
No.
Where's that?
J Peak,
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna move you guys over here.
Do you need a handler, do you need another chair?
No, we have what, 1, 2, 3, 4 of you?
Yeah.
Right?
hold the mic, I assume
So
Mike.
there's
not coming.
4.
He
Well,
messaged
no,
me
here's
about it.
1,
He said, I thought it was next
2,
week. I said, no.
3, and I'll put 1 on that side, and then the 2 candidates can go here. That will work, perfect.
Mike's not coming.
No.
We're moving over.
Yep. Moving up.
You guys can come up here, the planning board can come up at these chairs, these.
That one?
1, 2, 3, 4. And those are the candidates. Now I get to.
I don't want you to steal my raincoat.
Hey.
No, I know how you are.
Well, this is your chair. Ain't gonna do it anymore.
This is a hard one.
There's a padded one behind you too, if you don't want that.
You old people.
I carry my own
See, Bill?
padding.
I gave up my nice comfortable chair for a classy one just for you.
Wow, it's the first time ever.
Last time.
Don't
too.
get used to it.
Okay, so looks like Michael is coming. He's on his way. Might be
It's okay.
a minute or two late.
It's not an apple, but
Yeah.
it gets the job done.
Squeeze it.
We have 4 minutes.
You weed whacking this morning?
What's that?
We have 4 minutes.
We do.
Oh, really? Oh, no, no. Eat the rain.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you noticed or not, but the pavement markings on 68 South,
Mhm.
is that the finished
I
condition?
hope not.
No, they're painting in those, I believe.
You paint-
I would think, I haven't been out there since they did that.
I think they paint.
So is
they
that
recess.
thermoplastic maybe? That's the thermoplastic?
I think it's engraved down a little bit,
Yeah, it's
isn't
just
it?
ground, and then they'll put the yellow on top.
That's
of it.
ground down? Oh, I thought it was like
Yeah.
reflective and
No,
stuff.
I think it's ground down, cause I know,
At night
like,
and in the
plow
rain,
for the
it's
state,
hard to see.
if they weren't recessed,
Yeah.
you'd scrape them right off.
You'd
Right.
you'd wipe the paint off really
Yeah.
quick.
It's
Yeah,
just,
it's
it
supposed to
looks
make
really
the last one.
organized.
It looks neat. As
And
long
like,
as the yellow paint hits the same spots, they'll be good.
That's why it's taking so long. The guy that does it goes really slow.
Does he?
No, I don't know.
Good for details, right, Bill?
Yeah. No, they do it at night, so I can't
Yeah.
stay awake anymore. so.
It looks neat, though.
It's different. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, I don't think that's gonna work too well.
It's raining, you can't see it.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking that on my way here tonight when I was coming, cause I had to drop my son off at hockey. And I'm saying, I can't see the line, I hope it's gonna be yellow.
Yeah, they just haven't painted it.
so I don't know if you've noticed, but I think what they were supposed to do was they're supposed to taper because Main Street, when that gets reconstructed, is gonna be thinner, you know,
Mhm.
traffic calming and whatnot. But if you look at where the shoulder is, it's tapers in as you get closer to Main, as you come up the hill and get closer to Main Street, it tapers in
Right.
preparation for that, next project
Someday.
someday.
Smile is all you want.
Tired. Ready for bed.
Yeah, me too. Is this the secret controller?
That's the edit.
I like this thing.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Is this
They're inexpensive.
computers, aren't they?
Yeah, instead of having a stack of paper.
That's
It
only
actually works
some
pretty
better
good, except I gotta
sometimes.
get that. It's all Gmail, so I gotta get it come up on my phone.
Like I'm used to
All
the
you gotta do is log
iPad,
into
you can
it.
touch
No,
the
I know,
screen,
but-
but you can't with this.
I don't have time to do anything, so.
I tried, I
Chromebook.
got the planning board on my
I think they were almost
desktop,
$199.
but I can't get it to come up on my phone. So I never use my desktop. I'm
Yeah,
always on this thing.
yeah. But I always check my emails on my phone.
So you can look at the maps pretty good and stuff.
I don't use the desktop.
The family that
Yeah,
had,
yeah, I don't
house
think
in
Wow.
Yes.
We've been hearing
about that.
I got a,
Some other good things about it too.
my bedroom's
love is
smart
still up
TV is
there.
better than one in the living room, so 'cause I can just take and flick whatever I got on the phone and it goes to the screen on the TV.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Jeez, you have that lot on the right, don't
Yeah.
you? Remember when they cut that too?
That's why I bought it.
Put it on reading
No
the
gravel,
gravel.
yeah. Oh, geez.
Seven,
I
maybe
could do that.
Huh, that's kinda.
Yeah, I think I was still in school at the time. I remember one. I graduated in '87.
Actually, it's, a lot of it's automatic now.
No.
All you gotta do is go in on your setup
It's-
on
we didn't
both of
put
them,
it
Yeah.
sees each other and poof, it's fine, especially if you're on the same Wi-Fi.
Yeah, just listen.
Whenever I have a
You know
problem,
what I
I
mean?
just
So I don't know.
have Austin, my
What's
youngest.
cool,
Yeah, yeah.
what's not cool.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blindsided, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's-
we can get all that.
See how things
What's
go.
that, the assessors?
Yeah.
I definitely like the idea of a roll call.
Yeah.
Get a feeling
I
of
think
where they're
we'll have
going.
better barbecue Saturday.
How many
The
more?
reason
years?
I asked about this is I would have requested a roll call vote
Oh,
also.
really?
because
Well, October's trying to.
So, you know,
We got weddings in October.
Yeah.
We get a
why,
wedding Saturday
I'd like
at
to
the
know.
Red Apple
you know,
Farm. 400 people we serve.
Trying to put the layers on, yeah.
My food on
Nowhere to
the
go.
Probably my town.
The what?
Nowhere to go.
Yeah.
There's plenty of.
All right.
Hey. Oh, you made it, Mike.
7:01. Hello?
Okay, you're up.
All right, I'll call the select board's already in session. I'll call the planning board to order at 7 o'clock. We have a very simple agenda. We're here tonight to or interview and review the candidates and vote the candidate to fill the vacancy on the planning board. Everybody get a chance to read the resumes and
Yes.
ready tonight.
Okay. Can I just talk about procedure? Just so we're all on the same page about
Certainly,
procedure?
yeah, there's a dueling chairman here.
I know, so, and there begins the procedure. So, so by statute, both the, boards, have to get together here in joint session, to approve the new planning board member for one term, to expire at the end of the next town election. Every member of the planning board and the select board gets to vote. There's no specific procedure for those actual proceedings. But I think the way we're gonna run it is we'd like the candidates to introduce themselves. We'll go through a little question and answer period for each. And then we'll have a discussion period, and then we'll have a vote. So I think the cleanest way to do it is a roll call vote, when we get there, and the planning board, you guys can start with that roll call, and then make its way over to the select board. So anyone have any questions or comments about the procedure? Okay, all right, well, we're gonna go alphabetical order. Could you guys, your last names are what again? Sorry?
Livedall.
Conahan, you're up first.
All right.
You wanna come on up?
Sure. So,
All right. Thanks again for your flexibility here and making it work.
well, thank you for your flexibility.
Also, your interest.
Yes, and your interest. So, I guess tell us a little bit about yourself, and we do have the application or the thing that you filled out. A little bit about yourself and why you're interested in volunteering your time to the town.
So, quick question, you
Yeah.
said everybody has the application, did everybody get the application and the cover letter that went with it?
I believe so, right?
Okay, perfect, just checking.
Yeah.
I didn't want to
Yes,
be
August
too
28th.
redundant.
To whom it may concern. Yep.
So real quick, my name is Dave Conahan. I have a wife and 2 kids here in Hubbardson. We've actually lived here since 1998. We've been hiding so nobody could figure out who we were.
That's what we all do around here.
Not really. My daughter's now 25, my son's 31. They're both doing quite well. And as the years have progressed, I've shed myself of various volunteer positions that I've been involved in. As you saw in the application, I've been involved in many organizations, including many in Quabbin. I mean, I didn't even put that I'm a founding member of the Quabbin Educational Foundation. You know, I've tried to give back to organizations that made sense for my family, for myself, etc. Now that I'm getting a little bit more up in, shall we say,
Age.
age, thank you. I was gonna say years, but one and the same. I thought it was, I am very interested in now giving back to the community that I've lived in for 20 years. And my background, yeah, I gave you a little bit. I'm a strategic accounts manager for Nations Roof. What's that? Basically,
sorry?
I am a strategic accounts manager for Nations Roof. Nation's Roof right now is ranked number 4 in North America as far as commercial roofing size. That's pretty big. That's pretty good size. We're talking millions and millions. My job is simple. Somewhere between $8 and $15 million worth of business a year. I keep my job. How do I do that? I deal with C-suites on a daily basis: CEOs, CFOs, COOs, executive VPs, and I help people manage their portfolios of properties across the U.S. So it's actually a very fun job. It's very challenging, but there's a lot of skill sets that I picked up along the way because, for instance, we're basically involved in everything from vertical masonry surfaces up to the horizontal roof surfaces. When you're in that kind of an industry, you think in certain ways, etc. If we step back in time, I actually cut my teeth in the industry, not even having anything to do with construction. I was civil engineering in the Air Force. So I actually learned lots about stone, sand, rock, pavement, all kinds of things. Kind of a boring career. I stayed at NORAD for all 4 years active duty. But in all seriousness, it was actually a lot of fun. I got involved in a lot of nice projects, learned a lot there. Other than that, before I started in the industry I'm in right now, which I'm now 35 years young in the position and the industry I'm in now, I actually started off in the commercial and residential remodeling, renovations, additions, a few homes built, etc. So all of that means nothing, other than the fact that I have a background that has to do with, in a sense, I think it can help lend itself to the planning board down the road. There may be some skill sets I can fall back on. And I will absolutely claim to not have all the answers, and I never will, never pretend to, but I'm pretty good at digging them up and researching when it comes time. And that's the same approach I would take while on the board.
Great, thanks. So how do you think, as sort of a newbie into a board,
Mhm.
how would you best attack integrating yourself into that environment that you've just begun into?
The first thing, which I've already started, is downloading, creating a file on my computer of the zoning bylaws, the various, there's actually a nice little selection of all the files that apply to the planning board. So I've started researching. I certainly need to ask questions, especially at the first meeting, if I'm, or even actually before the first meeting perhaps. I would want to get acclimated as quickly as possible on what the items are right now that the planning board is facing, so I could start digging my teeth into them. And at the same time, I would look to my fellow board members to kind of bring me up to speed as to what's already been looked into, what's been researched, what, if there's been any resolutions or some sort of determination to at least see where the direction is going. Because as a newbie, my role is not to try to change a course. It's to try to essentially match pace with it and eventually become part of it, and then eventually hopefully become an active, strong part of it. So.
Okay. How about availability? Is there anything that we should know about that you are part of, like the World Gaming Tour, or military duty, or house in Florida, or?
That's an excellent question. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Ed a little bit earlier about one of the reasons why I had not really pursued positions within the community is because I have been so involved in business, raising a family, volunteering on many different boards. The only other commitment I have right now, besides work and family, is I still serve as a chairperson for the Salvation Advisory Board in Worcester. But that's a commitment that is one Wednesday noon per month, and we're actually right now actively searching for a replacement. They don't want me to step down, but I also believe, and I may shoot myself in the foot for saying this, I believe that boards that I'm involved in, if I stay as chairperson for too long, I think I can become stagnant. I think the board can become stagnant, and I'm a big believer in trying, if I've done my job as a chairperson, I've essentially tried to set the groundwork for someone else to take the reins and keep things moving in a forward direction. And right now, that's what I'm actively doing, because that's the last piece. I would really like to, I do travel, but I have a lot of control over my schedule. And of course, the nice thing about most of the planning, at least the set planning board meetings, is they are set. So I can set my schedule accordingly so that I'm available. And with enough advance notice of any special meetings, I'm available.
Okay.
So,
Well, that was it for me. Obviously, everyone at the table here is equal footing, and I don't know if anyone else wants to ask any questions?
You've been in town for a long time, and first of all, thank you for coming out, because it takes a lot of courage sometimes to come out and try to do one of these things, but thanks for volunteering to fill the spot. You've been in town a long time. What do you think about the pace of growth? And there is no right answer or wrong answer to this. What do you think about the pace of growth in town? Do you think the town needs more, needs less? What type of growth? I mean, what do you, obviously coming out for the planning board, you have some idea of what needs to be changed or what needs to continue. So I'm just interested in hearing your thoughts.
I was expecting that question, and I don't have a canned response for it. What I will share is this. One of the things I found interesting, although I had to take it with somewhat in context, I looked at the SurveyMonkey results from 2017, because I'm going to turn this around, because again, this will give you a little bit of insight into who I am as a person. I don't have any personal objectives one way or the other with the growth of this town. What I actually would like to be a part of is helping to understand what it is the town would like, and then helping that move forward. So I think what you're really asking me, at least in my context, is how do I feel the town feels yet? I'm still looking into it. I saw some very interesting responses in the survey from 2017. I also see, I picked up on something which kind of surprised me to a point, but if you look at a percentage of the 400 some odd respondents, 51% were retired. And but then again, I had to sit back and say, okay, but the town is, what is it, about 4,200, 4,300 people? So we really only get representation of 10% of the town. So there's kind of a bell curve you have to think in terms of, is it 51% of 4,200 or 51% of that? But it was still a number that was intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it also, what I sensed when I looked at the survey, the other thing I found interesting was looking at the years in town. About 50% of the residents, again, that responded to the survey have been in town 20 years or fewer. 50% have been in more. So what I'm suspecting is happening is the planning board right now is probably being challenged by people that may not want to see any change whatsoever, and people that may be pushing for a lot of change. And of course, somewhere in between is probably going to be something realistic. So I'm not sure I answered your question other than telling you I'm not sure yet. I'm still looking into it. I don't have any preconceived notions one way or the other. That's part of my immersing myself into the role as I move forward, is trying to learn and trying to figure out what it is that our residents are interested in doing.
Okay. Anything from anyone else?
I'd second the motion on thanking you for coming out. I don't have any specific question, but yes, it is. Sometimes it's challenging to take on the new position. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for putting your name in the ring.
Thank you.
All right. Come on up.
Hello.
Hi.
It's interesting going second.
Yeah, you know, it's, somebody's gotta.
That's right.
So sort of same format there, if you could just tell us a little about yourself and
Okay, all right. My name's Alice Livedall. I think everybody probably has a resume. If you
Yep.
don't, you want one, I have some extras. I'm a retired lawyer, in contrast to our other candidate, my competition. I've just been in town a little over 2 years, but I practiced law in Worcester for 30 years and lived in Paxton for 25 years. And we retired here. My husband retired from Clark University. So like my competition, I have kids that are grown, one kid that's grown, she's 27. I'd like to serve on the board because I've always served on boards and committees, and it's part of giving back. And I think you have to give back. It's interesting to learn new stuff, to learn everything new, but if you have certain talents and expertise, I think maybe you have more to add to some positions than others. So I thought the planning board would be a good place for me to serve if you have an inclination to give somebody new and a woman a chance. My experience, so I practiced law from basically 1980 to 2013. And I did a lot of zoning and I did a lot of planning. I've never actually sat on a zoning board, but I've appeared before many, many of them, and zoning boards of appeals. And so I know if you sit on a planning board and you go too far in sort of making concessions and, where you have certain discretions, you face opposition from the abutters, right, who may come and challenge those rules. But sometimes you can't make something happen unless you grant some of those minor things. So there is a lot of balancing act and a lot of discretion that goes on. And I think I have a good sense of what you can get away with, what you can do, and what you can't do in those kind of situations. I did notice your planning board is your zoning board of appeals in town. It's the person that handles special permits, which isn't true in all towns. And I think that's where more discretionary things come in than other areas. So anyway, just a little bit about how I would approach zoning. I think I maybe should jump back a minute and say, so my committee experience is both in the private sector and in churches and in towns, but I was on the Wachusett Regional School District Committee for 5 years during a really tumultuous time, when we had to find a new superintendent. Our school was losing accreditation, and we had it was a very difficult situation, but we did well, and I'm really proud of how it all came out, if you've been to the new Wachusett. More recently, I've been on the Abby Kelly Foster Board, which is a housing nonprofit for abused women and children, and they just got a multi-million dollar grants to rebuild their building. It's a historic building in the middle of town, a dormitory. I still go to the First Congregational Church of Paxton. It's my church for 25 years, and I chaired its bylaw committee. In the town of Paxton, I was Citizen Caucus chair. For a couple of years, I served on the School Improvement Council when my daughter was young, and they did a lot because that school had a lot of issues too. We got a playground built and a library built, and it was interesting. I also had a few years on the Conservation Commission there, so I know what they do, and a brief time on the Finance Committee. So other than that, I practice law in a wide variety of areas, by no means exclusively zoning and planning, just a general practice. And I guess got my start with the Regional Environmental Council in Worcester, which was wonderful. It was kind of planning. Way back in the day, we had the assessors go through and give us all parcels over 25 acres and targeted them for protection. And most of them have become protected over those 30 years. Perkins Farm and, so I try to think out of the box a little. I did go to the planning board meeting last week, and we had a very interesting presentation by a guy named Todd
Miller?
Yeah, Todd Miller. And I thought, he had some good ideas for development that revolved around taking the 5 Quabbin towns and seeing where they each had strengths and amenities that others maybe didn't. and trying to market the area as a region. I think that's a really smart plan, actually. And I see Hubbardston as having wonderful recreation facilities, in terms of the playing fields, which, you know, you notice what your town didn't have when you started, right? So that's great. I think it's got tremendous spirit. I think it's doing really well with the events that are going on. What Todd Miller said is we should target millennials and retirees. So I'm a recent retiree, and I said to him, you know, you need to do something about that senior center. You need to get it up, because you're not gonna get reason, you know, you need it for not the new retirees, but the new retirees' parents that they're caring for. The new retirees are still caring for parents. I have a mother-in-law who's 95. So you don't have to run, you know, you don't have to run to town to get the blood pressure checked and to get away for a little bit. So, and then I think with millennials, I have a daughter who's a millennial.
Congrats.
And I think, again, a beautiful school, beautiful recreational fields, I think good teaching. I think that you need more people in town. You do need more millennials. The age structure is skewing older.
Yeah.
And I think millennials, based on my daughter, are looking for a lot of other amenities, you know. I mean, you've got the nice pizza place. It'd be nice to have a few other restaurant type places, and it would be nice to have a clinic. Maybe you could piggyback on the Berry Clinic. I don't know what it has, but it's a long way to go to take a kid to a doctor. So there's little things you can look at. You don't get that say on the planning board, you know, it comes to you, but it is hot in here.
I thought it was just me.
Go ahead.
I know, it was hot
I
last
know,
week.
but Tom's got a cold eye, so.
Last week it was like 80.
No, no, no.
Warm-hearted.
How about, availability, so the same sort of question we had there, what would you generally say about that? I know you touched on it a little bit already, but,
I'm retired.
Yep.
I don't have other big commitments that are on a basis. I would love to say I could go to my house in Florida in the winter, but that's not the case. We're around. So I'm pretty available.
Okay. And then how would you, as a newbie, sort of, and I know you've talked about some of your experience, integrate yourself into that new group, which you will be the newest member of?
Well, I actually agree with what my competition said, is you gotta read, you gotta be familiar with the documents that govern your, you know, the map. I would add the map to that. A careful study of the zoning map. I've taken that map and done some driving around town. But, so site plan rules, bylaws, subdivision laws. I think the best way to learn the history of any place, if they're well kept, is to read the minutes for the last 2 years to come up to speed. And I noticed they're online.
Yep.
So I would do that. I would listen to people, try to listen to people. I know you're dying of the heat.
Roasting.
But I think you also have to kind of jump in respectively and get started.
Okay. I don't know, Michael, if you want to ask the same question, so we sort of have that.
I think it's a little difficult because Dave has been here a long time, so he can comment more about the growth of somebody who's been here a couple of years. I think you touched on a little bit, adding some more amenities for younger families. But is there anything to that vein that you'd like to add, that specific things that you can comment in the years you've been here about the rate of growth? Do we need more growth? Specifically, what kind of stuff do you think, or do you think everything's great so far? Again, tough for someone who's fairly in the last couple of years.
New. I think you got a lot of the same problems Paxton had, which is reluctance to change, you know, thinking that you'd make just a few improvements, you're gonna change that rural composition. And I don't think that's gonna happen. I mean, I guess it's possible. We're the next town out from Rutland, and Rutland's just exploded. But personally, I think that Hubbardston would benefit if there's areas where you could have small, moderately priced subdivisions to attract millennials that would come. And I don't know how you really get employers. I know that most of the people employed here, or many of them, work out of their home. And I think that's a great trend, because you're far from, you know, it's a long commute to a lot of places, but people that have that luxury, and many millennials do, you know, so you could encourage people that were home office type people. I think there's growth there. I think there's a huge desire for people like my husband and I to sell the house in Paxton, buy a much nicer house in a quieter, more rural place, which Hubbardston is. But we're also spoiled. You know, I run to Rutland to use to go to the Dunkin' Donuts. Although we have a nice coffee shop here, actually, that's nice. But I just think you could attract more amenities, and it would serve the town well.
Anyone else have anything they want to ask?
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I noticed that on several of these committees, like the school committee or some other committees, you end up being the chairman.
Oh, well.
Why is that? What do you,
I'm not like, okay, well, what happened with the school committee is we had a wonderful man who'd been on the chair of the school committee for years, won all the awards. His name was Duncan Leith. And Duncan Leith was seen by the voters as being too allied with Al Tutela, who was the superintendent, and the voters voted him out. And so then I was the centrist in the committee. It was a very divided committee. It's a long history, but Princeton and Sterling wanted to secede from the Union and have their own school, so they had their people. And then Rutland was always a target because everybody felt in towns they didn't pay their fair share, and I don't know. So somebody nominated me, and I said I'd do it, right?
Well, but you were in it for quite a while.
No, I was only chair for a year,
1 year? Yeah.
out of the 5 towns. I did well, and I would have run for another term, but I took over caring for 2 elderly parents that were in really tough shape, and one was dying, and I said, no, I'm not, and my daughter would have also graduated from high school, and that year was intense. It was unbelievable. We just had so many problems. But we got through it, you know, the school got built, we got a new superintendent, and then when I got off the board, the guy that didn't get reelected got reelected and was on the board again. So I don't know. This, you know, I'm the only one in the church that was willing to write bylaws, so that's how I chaired that committee. I would not say that I step into leadership positions. I won't avoid them, but it's not my goal to run things. Does that make sense?
Anything else? Anyone? Ed? Oh, so let's stick with the table here first, and then we'll take it up to you. Anyone else at the table? Good on anything else?
Also, thank you.
You had specific projects, you said residential and industrial land use and subdivision near a capped landfill and gravel pit redevelopment. These were projects that you
We're the lawyer on.
were representing the
Actually,
opponent.
yes.
And,
It's, the top one is actually the one I put on most recently, and it was an estate down in Leicester. And I wasn't the lawyer, I was the trustee that inherited everything this lady owned. And if you know Leicester, they had zoned out, they have an industrial corridor where they zone out housing. And that line ran right through the middle of this estate.
Oh, so you had to split.
So we had to
Both
split it
sides.
off, because we couldn't put into housing.
Okay.
And it was just a complicated issue, that worked out quite well. If you go to the intersection of Stafford Street and 56 in Leicester, that's where it is, and I learned a lot from doing that. The house that on the land was built in 1890, and it was a historic kind of structure. So it was so I just pointed out some of the
Well,
more
they're
difficult
pretty,
ones.
representative of having to know about what things that planning boards have to deal with.
Right, was my point, to do that. I spent a lot of time representing water and sewer districts. It was one of about probably 20% of my practice that were from Leicester. So they also dealt with issues like, what do you do when you don't have sewers and you don't have water, and how do you get them there, and which impacts planning, for sure.
Okay. Ed?
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's just so encouraging to have two
I know.
great candidates for this position.
Yes,
But
it
I
is.
also realize that only one can move forward in the position. So I wanted to make sure that the other candidate knows there's a much more exciting position available on the finance committee. And having served on that committee for many years, you get to know the town extremely well through its finances. And it's a great committee to be on. It's a lot more exciting than planning board.
I'm not sure whether to thank you. But I think I echo what it says there, which is, you know, if you've made the decision to be involved in the town, we can figure it out. Okay, well, anything else? Or we want to head to a discussion period or just straight to a vote?
I'd make a motion that we nominate or vote on Alice being the candidate for the open position on the planning board. Have a second?
I'd like to second that, and what I'd like to say is, I'm really, our board would be very beneficial with all your, what you've done in your history and what you could do, because there's a lot of new members on our board. That I think it would help us out extremely well. Sir, you are awesome too. It's a hard choice, but with her background, I think that would really benefit our planning board, where we are right now. So I would second that motion.
Okay. That was a long second.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm just kidding. It was necessary.
Yeah,
But I mean,
and
I-
this is not I don't mean to, this is wonderful that we have a choice.
Yes.
There's so many positions in town that go uncontested at the voting level and uncompeted for at the volunteer level. And this is just a fabulous evening to meet both of you and to hear your stories. And I'll second Ed, who, there's no winner loser here. There's plenty of room for everybody. Come back.
Yeah, I'll echo what Tom says too. I mean, I mean, both people are deserving of position. We have to pick one, but either way, please come back. I mean, whoever doesn't get the position, because there's lots of positions, like Ed said, the finance committee, the things go unfilled.
Board of Health.
And Board of Health. I mean, there's so many openings that are well needed of volunteers. I mean, a lot of people come to these positions with, you know, you don't have to be a land use attorney to be on the planning board, or a nurse or doctor to be on the Board of Health. So please come back and volunteer, because it's only going to make our town better.
So just so we're clear, Laurie, Tom seconded Ed. Ed didn't make a motion. I'm just kidding. All right.
Ed usually does. I'm surprised.
So, do you mind if I run the roll call?
Please.
Okay, Tom? So
well,
we have a
Yeah,
motion.
explain what yes means.
And we have a second, and so the roll call will go around to the planning board first. Yes, no, abstain. Okay, Tom?
And wait, no,
Yeah.
the motion is to vote Ms. Linval on Livdahl to the planning board. Is that correct? So a yes vote would vote her on, and no vote would vote her off.
Correct.
Okay, just to make clear what the motion is.
Thanks.
Well,
Is
not
it
off.
second?
She's
You'll
not-
hear
No,
that
no,
second?
I'm
No,
sorry.
no, but
That's
it would-
true. You know what I mean, yeah.
Stop
yes.
her consideration.
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
Yes for
Tom?
Alice Livdahl. Yes.
Kendall?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Jeff?
No.
No?
No.
Jacob?
Yes.
Dan? Yes. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 2. Yes. The motion carries.
All right. I'd like to make another motion that the other candidate come back immediately and apply for one of the other positions. I was very
don't
very
think that's a
impressed.
motion.
Nobody second this, please.
I was very impressed with his enthusiasm and his knowledge on construction and those kind of things. I think it would be very helpful.
Agreed. So,
Agreed.
hopefully consider it, please.
But in this case,
Okay, so Tom, maybe you want to, unless you have other business, you want to adjourn first, and then we will?
Yes, I'd take a motion to adjourn. Bill, Craig, motion to adjourn for the planning board.
I'll make a motion that the planning board adjourns.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Okay,
And
so.
thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
thanks.
very much.
So, now we're still open session here. We have one item we haven't gone to, and that's the public press question and answer. as we go to get through here. Chance, you got anything that you want from us? Nope. No? Okay, anything further from anyone else? No?
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, motion's made to adjourn.
Second it?
Second, all discussion? I mean, discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes, adjourn at 7:35.